Okay, and we are live. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Um, this is awesome. This is our last program of the year, and you are at Seattle's Queen Bee of Neon, a celebration of the life and legacy of Bee Pepperfield, the brilliant designer of many of Seattle's iconic neon signs, Neon Glow. I'm Taylor Roden. I'm the Community Events Manager at Historic Seattle, and we're live from Historic Seattle's home in First Hill, the Dearborn House. And our mission at Historic Seattle is saving meaningful places to foster lively communities. I'm joined by our guests of the hour, Cynthia Brothers of Vanishing Seattle and Brad Holden of Seattle Artifacts. Thank you both for being here and for saying yes to the program and for coming down to our office to make this a truly hybrid happening. It was wonderful that we could do it this way. So I have a few announcements and folks to thank before we turn it over and hear from these two about Bee and all of her amazing work in and around our city. So I'm going to get to it and I'll start with our land acknowledgement. So Historic Seattle knows that our properties and our programs occupy the unceded traditional territories of the Coast Salish peoples. And this acknowledgement is not a substitute for developing relationships with Indigenous communities or for honoring Indigenous stories as we share our collective history, but it's the first step in recognizing the people whose land we occupy. And next, I'm going to thank a few groups of folks. I'm starting with our sponsors. Thank you for making our education programming possible, and specifically our virtual programming free in COVID. It's been really great to be able to make this extremely accessible to everyone. So thank you to Bricklayers and Allied Craft Workers Local 1, Washington and Alaska, Daniel's Real Estate, the Greystone, and the Lodge at St. Edward Park, and Sellen Construction. And I'm going to leave this up here so that you all can read it, but I also want to extend a big thank you to my Historic Seattle colleagues. You all are an incredible group of folks to work with, and this program, like all of our education programs, is truly a team effort. And before I share a bit more about Cynthia and Brad, I also want to thank Bee's family members for joining us this evening. We see you virtually, and thank you specifically to Catherine, Sue, and Starla. And if there are any other family members or loved ones of Bee tuning in, please, we'd love to say hello to you. You can just send me a message in the chat, and then when we get to our Q&A at the end, we'll be sure to give you a special shout out and a special hello. So with that, I'm going to share a little bit about our guests, and then we'll dive right into the conversation. Start with Brad. So Brad is an author, historian, and finder of old things. I love that. Me too. So when not searching for local historic artifacts, Brad enjoys writing about Seattle's past. His work has appeared in Pacific Northwest Magazine. He's a contributor for HistoryLink.org, which is a partner organization of ours. So yay, love all the crossover. HistoryLink.org is an online encyclopedia of Washington State history, by the way. And they are also the creators of the self-guided tours that we've been promoting for the past 18-ish months. Brad has been profiled in Seattle Magazine, Seattle Refined, King 5 Evening, and various newspapers. And his latest book was released in July of this summer, Seattle Mystic, Alfred M. Hubbard, Inventor, Bootlegger, and Psychedelic Pioneer. And you can leave that in when we get to you, but be sure to check Brad's book out. And I'll also include a link to purchase Brad's book in the follow-up email with some other goodies for you all. And our next speaker, our other speaker, is Cynthia Brothers of Vanishing Seattle. Thanks for being here, Cynthia. Vanishing Seattle is a project that documents the displaced and disappearing institutions, small businesses, and cultures of our beloved city, Seattle. And it celebrates the spaces and communities that give this city its soul. Thank you for your work doing that. Cynthia is the co-executive producer of Vanishing Seattle Films, which is a 6-part film series that released in 2020. And if you've been following our virtual programs this year, you'll know that we partnered with Cynthia in January. So it's great that we're bookending 2021, where we focused on a couple of the films for our first program of 2021. And that's also on our YouTube, and I will send links to all of the above so that you all can check out the awesome work that Cynthia is doing. Cynthia is also the founding member of the anti-displacement organizing group, Chinatown International District Coalition, aka Humba's Not Hotels. They're a wonderful group. And for her day job, she works as a program officer for a National Immigrant Justice Fund. Cynthia is a proud alumna of the high school where Bruce Lee first demonstrated his famous 1-inch punch. I'll let you all solve that mystery on your own, because I like trivia and I like puzzles. So with that, I will turn the conversation over to Brad and Cynthia. Just one last note throughout the presentation, we invite you to put your questions in the Q&A section of the chat, or you can send them to me. I'll monitor those. And then at about 10 minutes to 7, we will open the floor up for answering your questions. And I will do my very best to answer as many as we can before our time is up. If we can't do that and you want me to share your question with Brad and Cynthia directly, let me know, and I would be happy to email that to the two of you for any follow-up. And my last note is just a reminder that this is a safe space for all participants, and we just ask that everyone be really present and respectful of the space for listening, for learning, and exploration. And if that can't happen, we will respectfully and kindly remove you from the meeting. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to our two guests, and let's get started.
All right.
Awesome. Thank you, Taylor and Historic Seattle, for having us.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, I think we wanted to kind of like keep it conversational, and Brad, it's super awesome to be here with you, because we used to have a series of meetups in historic Seattle watering holes.
That's right.
I think our first one was it at Mike's Chili Parlor?
That was one of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Feels like a long time ago. We had one at Jules Mays.
Andy's Diner, the old Andy's Diner,
Yes.
those train cars. Yeah.
We
hit several of them. So
yeah, so it's great to be sitting down again with you with a few beers, and
likewise. Well, we've been friends for a
history.
while, and you know, I think we both started out on Instagram around the same time. You may have started before me, I don't remember, but of course both of our accounts had that shared interest in Seattle history. I think that's how we met, and we became fast friends. And the coolest part for me has been, from each of our accounts, each of us have kind of gone on and done different creative projects. And it's been really cool for me to go through my journey while watching you go through yours at the same time. And here we are together. This is our first, you know, public appearance on the proverbial stage. So happy to be here with you.
Yeah, likewise. It's been a fun journey, and yeah, super stoked to delve more into Beatrice Haverfield's amazing legacy and body of work. Yeah, so maybe I'll just kick it off by asking you what led you to discover Bee's story.
Yeah, so for those who aren't familiar with me, I'm the person behind Seattle Artifacts, and basically I go out to estate sales and flea markets, garage sales, things like that, looking for old artifacts from Seattle's past. And then I bring them home and research the story behind them, and then curate them on my page. At least I used to do it a lot more. I think once COVID hit, it feels like it kind of came to a somewhat of a standstill, and I was doing more writing, but that's how I got started. So a few years ago, I hit an estate sale, and I found some old menus, and I brought them home. And the first one I picked up was this old burger joint. I don't even remember what it was at this point. It was something from the 50s. And so I was doing some online research about it, and I came across this this random blurb about this lady, Bee Haverfield, who I'd never heard before, who designed all these iconic signs. And it was just a really brief mention of her. And it instantly grabbed my attention because I had never heard of Bee Haverfield before. It wasn't a name I was familiar with. And the fact that she designed all these signs. So I was like, so at that point, the menu, I wasn't interested in the menu anymore. I wanted to find more about this bee. So I put the menu aside, and I went out to research more about Bee. And I figured, you know, if she designed all these signs, surely there's been a bunch of articles written about her, maybe even a book, but there was nothing. There was nothing written about her. And the best I could find was there was this this website that profiled different Seattle artists. And one of the artists that profiled was this guy, Eli Wolf. And on his profile, it talked about how his grandmother, Bee, had inspired him artistically, and how she had designed all these signs. But that was the most I could find really about her. So I reached out to him, and asked him if I could find out more about Bee, ask him some questions, maybe set up an interview. He got right back to me and said, I'll be happy to talk to you, but the person you should really talk to is my mom, Kathleen, Bee's daughter. She could probably provide you a lot more information. So he gave me her email. I reached out to her, And she got back to me right away. I think she was excited that somebody was finally taking an interest in her mom after all these years. So she said, yeah, why don't you come up to my house? We can sit down and talk about her. And in fact, I have a bunch of her sketches if you're interested in seeing them.
Wow.
And I remember I was trying to play it cool, like I didn't want to show my hand too much. So I was like, yeah, that sounds interesting.
Whatever,
yeah. But inside, I was doing fist pumps and backflips. It's like, yeah, that sounds great. So I went to her house that weekend, spent an afternoon there, and she was really hospitable and warm and welcoming. And we sat down, and then she pulled out these cardboard portfolios with the sketches in it.
Oh boy.
And I was super excited. I remember it was like an archaeologist about to explore an unexplored tomb or something like that. I knew something good was in store. She cracked it open, and one of the first sketches she pulled out was the original sketch for the Chubby and Tubby sign at their original location in South Seattle.
Mm-hmm.
So I knew,
the one on Rainier.
The one on Rainier,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. That was like one of the first ones we pulled out. So I knew there was like some good stuff in there.
Iconic.
Very iconic. And so we spent an afternoon going through them. And the best part of it was, so as we're going through them, all these memories are flooding through her, because I don't think anyone had looked at these sketches for probably a few decades, including her. So it was kind of like a time capsule.
Mm-hmm.
So as these memories are coming back to her, she's sharing these little tidbits of stories about Bee's life with me. And so the stories become more and more complete. And by the time I left that night, I was just like, this is incredible. Her story really needs to get out there. And that's what led me to write the article for Pacific Northwest Magazine. And that was the first one to kind of break her story and let people know like who this lady was and the incredible signs that she designed. So that was the story about how I discovered it. And I understand, Taylor, you mentioned this. Kathleen is one of the people watching this. So Kathleen, thank you very much for inviting me to your house that day. It was great. And it was an honor to write your mom's story. So thank you.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I feel like you have a talent for kind of finding these, folks who have been really influential and have a lasting impact on Seattle, but most people, they're not like household names. Like Al Hubbard is another one. Like recently you released a book about his involvement in Prohibition and as an inventor, and then later the Johnny Appleseed of LSD. Maybe just like remind folks like the name of that book that you released I would highly recommend folks check that out too. Thank you.
And I'm really excited to be doing this event with you, because I've always wanted to talk to you about Bee, because I think Bee hits on a lot of kind of notes that you cover on your Vanishing Seattle page. So, you're familiar with Bee's story, you've seen her sketches. What does she kind of mean to you as the person behind Vanishing Seattle?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I didn't know about Bee until I read your article and talked to you. And I think like most Seattleites, I was familiar with her work via her signs, which are visual and cultural landmarks, the Elephant Car Wash, Dick's Drive-In, Chubby and Tubby. I have my own experiences associated with those businesses too. Sure. And a lot of my followers, if I post stuff about that, I mean, they come through with a lot of, really, personal, compelling stories. So, I don't really know much about the person, the woman behind these, really iconic signs that I think for a lot of people, they just kind of equate Seattle in so many ways with those signs.
Right. But they don't really think about like, who designed that and what's the story behind that.
So I think it really was a gift for you and her family to be able to come together and like share that story with Seattle. And I feel it's really resonant too. I mean, number one, that she was a woman and that she was she had a lead designer position at Campbell Neon. So for the time, in the 40s, like she had her own sign company. Worked at Boeing, right? She went through a Rosie the Riveter stage for sure. So like mid-century, it was kind of rare for women to be in the workforce in those type of positions, let alone a leadership position in those industries. So yeah, that was really cool and really powerful to learn about that. And then also how she was just so creative and innovative. And it seems like in her sign, she brought a lot of herself into it.
Right.
Like her handwriting is the lettering that, makes up the Dick's Drive-In sign.
Right.
And on Chubby and Tubby's.
And the Ivers.
Yes, and Ivers. Yeah.
Yeah.
And on the car wash sign, she's got 4 baby elephants to represent her children. So yeah, I thought that was really, touching and moving. And I think it's still, just relates to like, women in the workforce today. And it speaks to, how I think that it's just very timeless, like that she was such a force and had such a legacy during that time, but also it continues to, reverberate to this.
Timeless is a good word. I think that's a really good word. Yeah. Yeah. I've referred to her as a unicorn before because of what you touched upon, because she was designing these signs back in the 40s, 50s, and early 60s. And it was kind of a men's club back then. It was an industry dominated by men. And she was one of the only females doing it. But not only that, but she was so prolific in the amount of signs she designed. And the signs that she did design, a lot of them have gone on to become kind of symbols of Seattle. I'm sure there were a lot of great male sign designers back there, but can you name any of them, or can you name any of the signs they designed? But here we are talking about B. So she was a trailblazer for sure. And
absolutely,
hats off to her for what she did.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, is there something like, have you had like thoughts or ideas about why we're just kind of learning about her story now? Just given, that her work is so visible, right, so impactful. Like, why do you think, that we haven't really known much about her up until pretty recently? Yeah,
well, from what I know about B, it sounds like she was pretty humble. She wasn't out bragging to people like, hey, check out that sign, I designed that. So she kept it pretty low key. So I think that was partly it, because a lot of people just didn't realize it. And then I think when the story that I wrote broke, I think it really resonated with people, because I think B really kind of is very representative and is a symbol of old Seattle. We were just talking about that before we started recording here. And she touches on a lot of points that you cover on your Vanishing Seattle page. A lot of the signs have since gone out of business, Chubby and Tubby's, and of course we recently lost the elephant car wash sign that she designed. So I think that just really resonated with people when that story did come out, because that's been percolating for a while. The way that old Seattle is just so rapidly vanishing, and here's her story, and I think she just really represented that so well. And and she died in 1996, and that was right around the time that it seems like Seattle started flipping. The year before that, Microsoft had of course released Windows 95, which was a big deal back then. And I feel like that just put out the beacon for, all right, and that's when all the online startups started happening here, and a lot of tech people started moving here. And I don't want to lay all the blame at their feet, but it was a catalyst. I think that was an important moment in Seattle's history, where it kind of changed from the blue collar Seattle, the old Seattle, to kind of changing over to more of a technopolis. And that's right when she died. So I think a lot of different parts of B's life really kind of symbolized that. And I think that just really resonated with people.
Yeah, I'm also really fascinated about so like kind of other aspects of her life that maybe aren't directly related to her body of work or the signs, but like you shared a really interesting tidbit with me about her involvement in social activism. She was an anti-Vietnam War protester, and she was involved with, was it the
civil rights? The Seattle 7, So B got into a car wreck. Somebody rear-ended her sometime in the 60s. I want to say it was the mid 60s. And unfortunately, that really ended her sign career. She sustained some kind of injuries. I don't know exactly what, maybe some nerve injuries to her hand, but she wasn't able to design signs anymore like she was. So she resigned from her position at Neon Campbell, and she took a position at South Seattle Community College. And back in the mid to late 60s, as I learned, this was one of the hubs of a lot of that social activism that was going on. There was the civil rights movement. There was the anti-war protests that were going on that you mentioned. And a lot of the students there at Seattle Central Community College were involved in that. And she kind of dove into that. And I think that was always kind of something that was part of her personality. She always, wanted to help the downtrodden and, the people that were social injustices and things like that. So she became a really beloved figure there at South Seattle Central Community College. And she became a hit with the students, and she started joining them in the protest. Her daughter was telling me she went on a cross-country train ride to Washington, D.C. to take part in some big protest that was going on there. And I guess, so there was the Seattle Seven. They were a protest group. They got arrested and they went on trial. One of the members was the inspiration for the Big Lebowski, the dude. Yeah, he was one of the Seattle
Front. Was that
was part of them. Yeah, they were connected with that. And when they went on trial, apparently, from what her daughter told me, she put her house up for mortgage to help them, to bail them out of jail. So she had her finger right in the middle of all that was going on. So that was kind of a cool second act of her life. She spent the first part of her life designing all these cool signs. And then when she got injured and couldn't do that anymore, suddenly she shifted over and unintentionally got drawn into this world of civil rights and anti-war protest and became kind of a central figure in that. So that was a cool part of her story. Yeah.
I love to think about how involved she was in the local Seattle community, and just thinking about how she shaped Seattle, and also conversely, she was influenced by just
all the social things that were going on at the time.
Yeah.
And Kathleen actually shared some more insight about the injury and
okay.
I figured you might.
So Kathleen was saying, so her vision was affected by the whiplash. And okay, that makes sense. So I guess that's what affected her sign design work. Thank you, Kathleen.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. So for you, so what does B's signs kind of represent for you? And even outside of B's signs that she designed, what are some of your favorite signs in Seattle?
I mean, I think one of the most, kind of rewarding aspects for me of, because I'll do different posts on Vanishing Seattle, obviously when the Elephant Car Wash was demoed and the sign was removed. I shared about that, did a post about that. I think that was in October of last year.
That sounds about right, yeah.
And then the Soto location on 4th and Lander, that closed suddenly
in
August.
Right.
I mean, I think people didn't really know about it. It's very sudden. I just happened to know about it because I was pulling out to get my car washed.
Really?
I was like, oh, what? I can't go through. And there was a truck moving stuff out.
Oh,
I happened to roll down the window and chop it up with somebody who was working there. And I mean, that one in Soto was actually the first one.
Right.
That one predated the
that's right.
Denny location by about, I think that opened in 1951.
Yeah.
And the Denny one was 1956. So just, sharing those out and then getting this flood of memories and stories from folks. Not only just kind of sharing this association they have with her signs of kind of the unique spirit of Seattle and how it conveys something about the character and the tone of the city, where it's the signs are fun and colorful and campy,
whimsical. Yeah.
Just kind of the city in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
And kind of the feeling of disbelief and devastation folks have when the signs and the businesses associated with them close, because they do seem kind of sacred and kind of endemic to the city
definitely
itself.
And the Elephant Car Wash sign is a good example of that, because that was so iconic. I mean, that's up there with the Space Needle, in my opinion. When you look at postcards, or if they're doing montages of old Seattle, that's what you see. You see the
Yeah.
Elephant Car Wash along with the Space Needle and
Yeah.
the other stuff. So yeah, when that stuff comes down, I mean, that really hits close to a lot of people.
Yeah, absolutely.
Myself included, I'm sure
Yeah.
you, yeah.
Yeah, and people had memories of, going there as a kid and having like their, parents take them there to go get their car washed, or when they're, bombing down Aurora, and they,
Right.
are reaching downtown and they see that sign, or that's kind
Right.
of, how they get their bearings, once they
Yeah.
reach downtown. And yeah, like you said, it being the most recognizable and photographed landmark, probably, right behind her up there with the Space Needle.
Yeah.
But yeah, but there's just this feeling that like when we lose, these signs or these places, like kind of these larger existential questions about what does that mean, where we're going in terms of where we're going as a city.
Yeah.
Like kind of turning into something that's colorful and quirky and weird, and kind of celebrating that
And losing all that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Something that perhaps is kind of like soulless and sanitized and more upscale.
Right. Well, and these things, to me, like the signs and all that, that kind of represents your metropolitan identity. For any city you go in. And for Seattle, these signs, I mean, those are the landmarks that you instantly recognize and associate with the city. So when they go away, it's almost like the city is losing its identity.
Right.
Which just makes it extra tragic.
Yeah, absolutely. And there were, I think one person commented that they have an elephant-shaped hole in their heart.
That's a good way to
after
describe
the
it.
sign went away.
Yeah.
And there were some community efforts in response to the Denny pink elephant getting taken down. There wasn't like a last-ditch effort to try and landmark it. There was also a community campaign to kind of maintain that space, because it's, it's public. Like anybody can see it.
Right.
You don't have to like pay money or pay admission. Like, God bless Mohi for restoring it and that has a space. But some people are also feeling like Mohi is becoming a graveyard for
Seattle. Sadly,
old Seattle landmarks. So there wasn't a push to, try to keep that area as like a public park or something where it could still be accessible to the public, and that could still be possible. But yeah, I wrote down like a couple quotes that folks left in terms of like how they were affected after the elephant left. Brianna Victoria said, "For the love of God, leave the elephant. It's a ray of sunlight in the growing sea of bland marks."
I like that quote. That's great.
Like I said, like people leave gems because they're very, they're pretty affected by it. You grow up with something every day, and then.
Well, that's one thing I love about your page is that when this kind of stuff does happen, it seems like your page is almost a community gathering place for people to kind of commiserate this loss that we're experiencing. This Vanishing Seattle. So I always enjoy looking at your page for that reason, to hear about people are sharing their memories on your page. And so
Thank you. Yeah. I feel like it's good to, as much as like a huge bum out.
Yeah.
Me, I feel like
it is kind of a bummer, but it's
nice to have a space
at least has a place to people to vent.
Or like to share these, cool stories and memories
Absolutely.
that they have.
Absolutely.
And then, and then they can learn about like the history and, the legacy of B, because there's a story behind the signs that we like most of us never knew until recently. So
right.
So that's really cool.
That is cool.
Yeah.
So and that was the other question I was going to ask you. So aside from B's signs, what are some of the other signs that are still in existence that are kind of near and dear to you?
So let's see. There's the Randy's restaurant in Tukwila along Marginal Way.
Do you know what's going to happen to that sign?
So Randy's closed a few months ago, and it very recently was demolished.
Yeah.
But that land is owned by King County, actually. So that yellow sign there is being kept by the county, as far as I know.
Oh, okay.
They are looking for somebody who might be able to take it. Someone they could gift it to. So if anybody feels like they have the capacity to do that,
For a big
or know
Randy
somebody, DM me at Vanishing Seattle and I can make a connection. I mean, I would love to see that sign not end up in a junk heap somewhere.
Yeah.
Definitely an iconic spot.
Especially if it could be in kind of a public place. I know it's kind of a large order to ask, but I would love to see it preserved as well.
In the International District, there's the Busch Garden and the Four Seas Dynasty Room. You see some neon there. The
Those
Dynasty
are great.
Room.
Yeah.
And the Four Seas Restaurant. So that was recently demolished, but the sign is gonna live on. I think it's gonna get split, and half of it is gonna live at Tai Tung.
Oh, okay.
And the other half is going to be in Uncle Bob's Place, which is the new low-income housing development that's going to be on that site.
Oh, great.
And then Busch Garden is going to move into that development too.
And Busch Garden they're going to survive just in a new location. Is that correct?
Yes. There is, so the plot thickens.
Okay.
There is still a fight to preserve the original Busch Garden / Elgin building behind it, which goes back to like the turn of the century.
Yeah.
It's got over 100 years of Asian American and migrant history there. So if folks want to stay updated with the Save the Busch Garden building campaign, they can follow Humbaus Not Hotels. Because there's like a vision to preserve and rehabilitate that space and also build low-income housing instead of what the current developer wants to do, which is build like 14 stories of luxury housing.
Yeah. And I think I learned this through your account. I didn't know this before, but correct me if I'm wrong. Was Busch Garden one of the first karaoke bars in the country?
Yes. I think it was the second Japanese restaurant in the state and one of the first karaoke bars in the country.
That's
and also
amazing.
Introduced like English language karaoke. So
wow.
Definitely historical landmark in a lot of ways.
Definitely. Yeah, that's cool.
What else? Guild 45th is another
one.
That's, super iconic. And there's several other old theaters in Seattle. The Neptune, which is still around, the Majestic and Ballard.
Yeah.
The Uptown Cinema in Queen Anne.
Yeah.
Great neon signs. Some of the old Aurora motels.
Those are the ones near and dear to my heart.
Yeah. I know you're working on like a Roadhouse. As well, about like Aurora history and.
Yeah. So the next book of mine, it's due to be published next summer, 2022. I'm co-writing it with Peter Blecka. He's written a number of books about local music history. He used to also be a writer for The Rocket. So he has a pretty impressive resume. So we're co-writing it together, and we're talking about the old notorious roadhouses that once existed along Highway 99 and the old Bothell Highway, which is now Lake City Way. And he's covering the Lake City route, and I'm covering the Highway 99 ones because I live not too far from Highway 99 up in Edmonds, and that's where a lot of them existed. So we're writing that. So Highway 99 has always been kind of near and dear to my heart. And that's where a lot of my favorite signs are. Daryl's Tavern. I've had
they got a great sign too.
They have a great sign too. And a little north of them is Harvey's, which is currently closed, but they have the rabbit that was moving. I don't know if you remember that one.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Anyway, that's supposed to come out next year, and I'm looking forward to that because Highway 99 has a really crazy history and a lot of people don't know about it. So I'm hoping to bring that to the masses and bring that story. So
yeah, absolutely. Especially because I think a lot of these places are no longer around, right? Or
unfortunately, no. Yeah. And you mentioned the motels, and a lot of those motels on Highway 99, those opened in conjunction with the 62 Seattle World's Fair.
Oh.
So that's why a lot of them have that kind of look to them, that kind of whimsical early 1960s, mid-century look to them, because that's when they opened. And they were nice motels at one point, but of course, over the years, a lot of them kind of gained the reputation of not being so nice, but we love the signs despite whatever's going on with the motels. And hopefully a lot of them stick around. Or because
close in.
That's right. They close in. Oh, With that clock, yeah.
And there's like another elephant on Aurora too. It's not neon, but it looks like it's a cement elephant or something that it was like the Aurora Flower Shop.
Yeah.
It's above like a tool rental.
Yeah, it was
place.
old roadside attraction
Aurora
artifacts.
Rents. Yeah.
Aurora Rents,
Thank
yeah,
you,
thank
Matt-
you.
Matt Hookey. Yeah.
Yeah, it was an old roadside attraction artifact that it stuck around and no one really knew what to do with it. So Aurora Rents kept it. And yeah, that's definitely an historic artifact for sure. So
yeah. Buckaroo Tavern.
the Buckaroo,
Yeah. I feel like that was like a little bit before my time. So one of my biggest regrets is like not.
I used to go there. I used to live in
got some
Fremont,
stories.
and I used to go there every Friday night at the Buckaroo. That was a regular stop of mine. So, and I actually went to the estate sale of the owner, and that sign was actually for sale. I forget how much it sold for, but it was cool to see it.
Yeah, someone messaged me that it's actually hanging in the Seattle Tavern and pool room in Georgetown.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So,
well, that's good to know.
Lives.
That's good to know.
I think it was also in 10 Things I Hate About You, which is probably the least cool thing about the book.
I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah, and then another one I'm a big fan of is the crocodile.
Yeah.
And just kind of, on a happy note, this is the new location.
Okay.
So, their original and second closed a few months ago, but they were able to reopen on First in the old Sailors Union at the Pacific Hall, which has, a very kind of storied history in Belltown.
Definitely.
Being a, hotbed for unions and the maritime industry and all sorts of film row, arts and culture.
Yeah.
And the Sailors Union used to have all ages shows back in like the mid to late 90s. I know you love this because you're a big music buff. But Bikini Kill played there. Radiohead, Elliott Smith.
Really? Radiohead played there?
Lord.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
okay.
a bunch of all ages shows. So there's kind of like a cool, connection back to the music history of this building. So
that's neat. We'll have to pay a visit there soon.
Yeah.
Does it have one of those big support beams in front of the stage, like the old crocodile? Remember that?
I used to get stuck behind that beam at like every show at the old Croc.
I think we all did at one point or another. Yeah.
Everyone
has a story about it.
I feel like everybody hated it at the time, but
but then it kind of became cherished.
Like a part of you.
Kind of endearing,
Yeah. There are a lot of comments about how people actually came to like miss that beam.
Yeah.
So, in the bottom, so there's like the big showroom, which is where the El Gaucho used to be.
Oh yeah.
And then there was the bar downstairs was kind of like the jazzy nightclub.
I remember that.
The Pompous Room.
Yeah.
And now it's called Madame Lou's.
Okay.
And maybe about her. I didn't really know much about her at all, but I guess she was a madame that owned a lot of brothels and stuff.
Yeah.
And she used her brothel money to help refinance the rebuilding of Seattle after the Great Seattle Fire.
Yeah.
And she was queer and employed a lot of queer people in her trade and industry. And so they named that bottom part Madame Lou's, and there is like a gold beam.
Is there?
Yeah.
Is
I don't know
there?
if they did that intentionally or not, but I totally found myself standing behind it the last time I was there.
Just out of memory's sake?
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting. I just saw there was an interesting thread on Twitter. So this I think she's in Portland. This author wrote a book about her.
Mm-hmm.
And apparently she debunked, I guess there was a lot of misconceptions about her that I didn't realize, but in her research, she went pretty deep in her research and she debunked a lot of interesting things about her that I didn't know before. Like, I guess there's a famous photograph. Have you ever seen that photograph of her in the parlor, supposedly, and she's sitting there? I guess that's not really her, at least according to this female. There's a lot of clues that indicates it really wasn't her.
Yeah.
So it was interesting. Hopefully that book comes to light, because I'd love to read her story.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a really beautiful mural too when you kind of go down the stairs.
I got to check that place out. Yeah.
Well, in terms of B, like you said, she was very prolific. Some of her most well known as the Car Wash, of course, and Dick's and Chubby and Tubby's, but did a ton of other signage for other businesses.
Yeah.
And then you had access to her sketches, and her family was generous enough to share those with you. So is there a spot where folks can check that out?
Yeah, so her sketches are currently on exhibit at the Edmonds Historical Museum, downtown Edmonds. Um, Check the website though before you go plan a visit there, because what's going on with a lot of museums right now is a lot of them, unfortunately, a lot of local smaller museums actually were put out of business because of COVID. The ones that managed to survive, a lot of them are having problems with staffing because a lot of museums, they don't have the budget for paid staff, so they rely on volunteers. And because of what's going on with COVID and stuff, they're having problems getting enough volunteers there to kind of staff it at all the hours that they're hoping for. And that's the case with the Edmonds Historical Museum too. So they're doing their best to keep it open as often as they can. But for anyone who wants to go see your sketches, again, they're at the Edmonds Historical Museum, but check the website to see what hours, because I think it kind of changes from week to week. I think they're mostly open on the weekends, but if you can plan a visit there, I definitely encourage you to go, because this is the first time her sketches have ever been on public display, and they're amazing to see. I mean, they're just works of art. They're really cool to look at, and it's worth a visit. So, and let me know if I can help in any way too. So, yeah, go check them out.
Yeah, I saw it a couple of weeks ago, and it was really amazing, and to be able to see the sketches up close, and she have some airbrushing like involved in there, and it's just and like cool to see like businesses that are probably long gone, and I haven't heard of them, but it's she's got her like writing and notes in the corner too, so it's nice to kind of get a glimpse perhaps at her process. So
her little measurements and scales and stuff that she wrote on, they're interesting to study. One of the, speaking of which, so another cool story about her is so her daughter Kathleen was sharing with me, she designed one of the original signs for the Cinerama, and this was in the early 60s, shortly before her car crash that she was involved in. And I guess it was really challenging for her because it was one of the vertical signs that went up and down, so she had to scale it so it would look a certain way if you were looking at it from the street. So I guess it took all these really crazy measurements and scales and stuff that she had to do, but it was really challenging. But I guess that was one of her proudest, the signs that she was most proud of because of all the work that went into it. So a little B. Haverfield trivia there for you.
And it looks like Kathleen shared a comment about that pink elephant
Christmas
tree, which was one of my favorite parts of the exhibit too. It's pretty glorious.
I haven't actually seen that Christmas tree. I'll have to go down there and check it out. So
yeah, it's awesome. There's also, I think you told me about, speaking of the Cinerama, that there was a petition recently to save the theater.
I don't know what the outcome was, but there was a petition going around because, of course, as a lot of people know, the Cinerama closed down or close to around the beginning of COVID. Its future is uncertain, but there's a petition going around. I'm sure if you Google it, you can find it to hopefully reopen it, and hopefully it does, because I mean it was an incredible movie theater, and I hate to see it go away. So. Yeah,
it was really like the technology that it has in terms of
it was amazing.
Projection screens. It's like there's not a lot of them left in the country. But I think the last time I looked, that petition was up to maybe about 10,000 signatures. But I mean, definitely got a lot of momentum, because that was another one where people were just sharing how that theater was really impactful and formative for like generations of Seattleites, just really instilled a love of movie going, a love of the experience of going to theaters with your family. And
the chocolate popcorn.
Yes.
Gotta love that chocolate popcorn. Couldn't get enough of that stuff. And it smelled so good. So
absolutely. Are there other signs that come to mind for you that you're a fan of? I know we mentioned some of the Aurora ones, but there's a lot of them in this.
There is a lot of them. A lot of my favorite ones of ones that have, are no longer around. I think I saw a comment earlier. Someone was talking about the Bardall sign in Ballard. And that was a great one. And of course, the Seattle PI one with the rotating eagle. And of course, I think that's at Mohi now too, right? I'm not mistaken.
Mhm.
But yeah, a lot of the ones that are near and dear to my heart are the the old drinking establishments, Daryl's, the Sloop and Ballard. I love that sign. So
Mhm.
those are the ones that are kind of
Yeah.
close to me.
Yeah. What was the one in Lake City? Was the Rimrock?
The Rimrock's
Yeah.
a good one.
Mhm.
Yeah. The Shanty. There's a few of
Mhm.
them there. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the Rimrock is still there, but the that business has been closed for what,
Yeah.
like 15 years
Something
or
like that.
something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good old Lake City way.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Never change, Lake City way.
So it looks like we're winding down on time, and I really wanted to talk to you before we open it to questions because I was curious about any projects and stuff that you're currently involved in. You made that amazing series of documentary shorts, and for anyone out there that hasn't seen them, definitely check them out. They were so well made,
Oh,
and
thanks, Brad.
I
Yeah.
loved watching them. So what other projects do you have in store?
Yeah, well, all credit due to the amazing filmmakers that we were, lucky enough to work with for that series 1 of Vanishing Seattle. If folks want to check those out, it's on the YouTube, the Vanishing Seattle YouTube channel, or vanishingseattle.org, the website.
So is there a series 2?
There is. Yeah.
Oh,
So
awesome.
we're kind of we're in planning now for series 2 and just kind of exploring.
That's great.
Yeah, different stories to tell.
Okay.
So, of course, like folks always feel free to message me if you see compelling stories in your neighborhood or places that are, vanishing or in danger of vanishing or resisting vanishing. And then Seattle Channel, the city's channel is going to have some programming coming out, I think, over the holidays too. So
That's great.
yeah, a work in progress. So
Excellent.
yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah.
And I'd love to actually have you, Cynthia, talk about this project that's taking it back a couple of months, but it was pretty fantastic.
Oh, yes,
yeah, I
thank
love
you.
that.
How could I? Yes.
That was great.
Huge oversight on my part. Thank you, Taylor.
No problem.
So this is really fun. This is just so I think I just started doing this the last couple of Halloweens where I kind of put out an open call for folks that have a Seattle theme, Seattle inspired costumes to just send them to me, and I would reshare them. And this year especially, I got like a deluge of amazing, incredible, creative costumes.
They were wonderful.
Yes, and this is just like the tip of the iceberg. So if you want to go back and see people's amazing creations, just like scroll back to end of October. But these are all the ones that were related to Bay's signs. So you see the Dick's Drive-In and Car Wash and Ivers, and people really, they came through for the Seattle themed costumes. I mean, I was like, I don't know, people really dress up as Seattle stuff, and it's like more common than you would think.
Yeah, I hope you do this every Halloween. I hope this becomes a yearly thing because that was really fun to see.
Yes, I think I will. It's like a kind of a fun, uplifting thing, and so I hope to see you in your costume in 2022.
I'll have to start planning something.
Yeah. So I mean, again, it kind of just speaks to the cultural impact of her work. Because people are just very, they find a lot of inspiration and creativity from her signs. So it was really fun.
Someone just asked if B designed the Blue Moon or the Comet Tavern signs. I know she didn't design the Blue Moon, the Comet Tavern. I don't think so, not that I'm aware of. It's entirely possible. There's a lot of signs that there's kind of a lot of unknown in what signs exactly B did design, and I have a feeling there's probably some more iconic signs out there that she may have had a hand in designing that people just aren't aware of.
Mm-hmm.
So it's possible.
It's a perfect transition actually to the dozens literally of questions that we've received and comments. So I will do my very best to all. And like I said before, I will download the questions and the chat, and I will share your questions with Cynthia and Brad because I have a feeling that we're not going to get to all of them. There are a handful of questions about very specific signs. So I will, between YouTube to my right, shout out to my YouTube folks who have been active in the chat, really singing your praises and also sharing a lot of history between them and this chat. We'll get to it. But I want to start with Jim's question here. Yes, yes. Let's keep going. Jim's question speaks to outside of Seattle, but still Washington State. And the question is, did we ever create signs east of the mountains in the Wenatchee area? Jim shares there's a wonderful House of Booze neon sign that's still along the highway. And people still talk about neon signs at the motels and like specifically a neon diver diving into a neon pool. So I'm wondering if either of you know anything about our east of the Cascades signage.
Yeah, I believe she did. I believe she designed some maybe in Bellevue, Issaquah, in that region. I don't know off the top of my head which ones, but I remember talking to Kathleen and her mentioning that she did. And I even, I believe it was Kathleen that told me, Bee's daughter, that she had a hand in designing the famous sign at Long Beach down on the coast.
Oh, cool.
You know that big sign that when you're walking down to the beach, there's a big sign. I think it just says "Welcome to Long Beach."
Huh.
Apparently, she had a hand in designing that too, which is
cool.
yeah. I mean, the list just goes on. So,
Mhm.
yeah, someone wrote something about a candy shop, and I think that's correct.
Mm.
Oh, Kathleen wrote that. Thank you, Kathleen.
Mhm.
That one. All right, I'm going to take a question from YouTube now. This is kind of fun. Toggling back and forth. So I'm going to scroll up and going back to your favorite signs in the ID, Cynthia. The question is, did B specifically work on those signs, the Busch Garden sign and the where was I thinking?
Oh, the Four Seas
Four
Dynasty
Seas.
Room.
I was like, I was like thinking of a bar. I was like, nope.
Yeah. Yeah, not that I know of. I was just kind
Not that I'm aware
of
of
shouting
either.
those out as some of my personal
Yeah.
favorite signs that the Dynasty Room does have some neon in it as well. But
Yeah.
I mean, I think the city's got a lot of awesome signs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I know that we put both in YouTube and in this chat the exhibit at the museum, but one of the questions was, is there a list where people can just kind of do their own adventure and perhaps do the signs that are still there, a full list of these signs anywhere? And I feel like you all touched on this, but it's popped up in kind of multiple comments and chats. So.
So I don't know if there's a master list of all the signs that be designed, but that would be a good project for someone to take on. Yeah, because I think that's
they're nominating you,
it's warranted. They're nominating me. Okay.
Well,
I can see what my next project's going to be.
B documentary, B
They
book.
They absolutely should make a documentary about B, because her life is worthy of a documentary.
Maybe do a documentary and then pair it with like a map and then like a walking tour.
Yeah.
Like a whole package. Sensory stimulation.
Yeah, no, into it. It should happen.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Thanks
for everyone who asked those related questions, that was the response. So if no K, and, my YouTube friends, there you go. Just keep badgering Brad on Instagram to do that. There's a question from Carla. Did B design any of the neon signs in Pike Place Market, to your knowledge?
No, I remember when I was researching her story, those signs actually predated B's work as a sign designer. Those go back to, I think even before the 1920s. Those are some of the oldest signs there, the Pike Place Market. So no, she did not have a hand in designing those ones.
Thank you. Like scrolling. There are a handful of questions of very specific signs, so we can kind of do like a rapid fire.
Okay.
This will be fun. Did we design this? Yes, no, maybe. The neon signs at Wally's Drive-In in Buckley, Washington.
Oh gosh,
Right.
I don't know.
Right.
I'm not familiar with that sign, so I'm not.
Okay.
It sounds cool though. I like those old drive-in signs. So, but I don't know. I don't know the answer to that.
Okay, we're gonna keep going with this. Blue Moon or Comet Tavern.
Yeah, I don't think she did. I don't think she had a hand in either of those signs. But again, the Comet, it's entirely possible. I don't think so, but I can't say 100% that she didn't have a hand in that.
I think the Comet sign, wasn't it redone sometime in like the 90s? Or I think there were two versions in the new
There might have been, they went through a renovation where they kind of basically renovated the place.
Yeah, I think they modeled the woman who's inside the crescent after like a long time regular.
Okay.
There's a great book about the history of the Blue Moon and its fight to like establish it as a landmark that I think you can buy from the Blue Moon.
Yeah.
And who's the guy that founded History Link? I think he wrote that. One of the
I should know this because I write for History Link and I can't think of his name.
People,
Yeah, he did. He wrote a book about the Blue Moon, and he was instrumental in saving the Blue Moon.
Yeah.
I just started a podcast recently.
Walt Crowley,
thank you. I should know that. I'm ashamed that I didn't know that because I write for his History Link that he started. But yeah, I started this podcast where we go to different dive bars and historic drinking establishments, and we record there at the bar itself. And we recently did the Blue Moon, and we went over the history of it. And it's a lot of developers over the years wanted to razz that place down and build condos and stuff. So thanks to Walt Crowley and people like him, he saved it. But yeah, the Blue Moon, there was a previous place that was just down the block from the Blue Moon that had the original Blue Moon sign. And when they built the Blue Moon that's currently there, that owner bought the sign from the original Blue Moon, and he liked the sign so much that they just named it the Blue Moon. So that's kind of the story behind there.
And your podcast is called Dim Lights and Stiff Drinks?
Dim Lights and Stiff Drinks, the Dive Bars of Seattle.
Nice.
Yeah.
Right
Yeah,
on.
we recently started that. So definitely look it up. If you're interested in dive bar history, we're trying to cover the history of all these different places. So yeah.
And I'll be sure to link to that podcast when I send the follow-up email. There's a lot here, y'all.
Thank
So it
you.
may take me until tomorrow morning to like really
There's a lot to
through
unpack here.
all
Yeah.
of this. Thank you.
No, I
so
love the
much.
questions though.
The questions are wonderful, and actually, there's a lot. Folks are answering questions in the chat.
Yeah,
Thank
I'm learning
you.
a lot just
Right?
looking at the
Thank you, Eugenia,
comments.
for shouting out that museum. Okay, I'm going to continue to do my like scrolling. This question came from Dan, and I'll just read the whole thing so I don't miss any of the important details. The owner of the Pacific Fisherman Shipyard on Lake Washington Ship Canal has a huge collection of vintage signs from Vanished Ballard and Seattle businesses. Are either of you aware of them, and do you have any idea what plans he might have for them? It's a very specific question, but I think there were a handful of questions about where certain signs have ended up, including the Chubby and Tubby sign. So kind of combining some of the questions that you all have asked about very specific signs, because I think it all kind of relates.
No, I've heard of that before, that there's this collection of signs. I've never gone down there to check it out myself. Have you, or do you have any knowledge about that?
So they're in the Ballard Vanishing Seattle films, which is kind of about the Scandinavian and maritime history of Ballard, and then focuses in on Scandinavian specialties, which is the last Scandinavian focused retail shop. They do like in the opening segment, they have some shots of all the signs of like the Viking and like these old Ballard establishments. So yes, Coppergate's in there, Zestos. So yeah, it's definitely a great cultural repository for a lot of the old signs and institutions of Ballard. But I personally don't know if there's like future plans for that. I also don't know where the Chubby and Tubby sign
I'm not sure about that either. Sadly, I'm fearful it ended up in the scrapyard or something, but hopefully not. Yeah, I'll have to look into that, do some investigating.
Yeah, if anyone has it in their like garage or something,
right.
Let us know.
Yeah.
All right, I think we didn't get to all of the questions, but we are at our time, and I do want to honor the time that we have. So if you all have any kind of last thoughts, shout outs, things that you're doing, working on that you'd like all of our folks to know, now would be the time. And then I will definitely just send you a list of the questions. I'll group them. Some of them are like, where's this sign? Where's this sign? And thank you everyone in the chat, both of these chats. I learned a lot just from reading your questions and reading your responses to each other. This is beautiful to see.
Yeah, so projects that I'm working on. I just wrapped up my book about the Seattle roadhouses that we were talking about. My podcast, again, that's Dim Lights and Stiff Drinks, the Dive Bars of Seattle. And I guess now is a good time as any to, so Seattle Magazine is it was just purchased by a new owner. And they're completely kind of reinventing themselves. And their plan is to basically emerge as a whole new magazine at the beginning of the next year. And I'm going to start writing a monthly column for them. And it's going to basically be a Seattle Artifacts column where I kind of profile something I found and I go over its history. So I got that coming in a couple months. So that's what I've been working on.
That's awesome.
And
super exciting.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, well, I guess I just want to thank Historic Seattle and Taylor for setting us up and the awesome slideshow and
this was great.
us, and thanks to Bay's family too, just for helping to share and uplift her story and for joining, and thanks to you, Brad, for all of your amazing work. Like, I've just learned so much from reading all of your articles and all of your your passion that you put into like local history.
And likewise for you too. I'm constantly learning stuff from yours. And
I appreciate that.
Absolutely.
Thanks to shout out to Western Neon for doing the rehab on the acknowledgement signs.
Absolutely.
Just thanks to everybody who joined for their interest, like nerding out about Seattle signs and culture, and just everyone who's interested, because I think it actually is I think it actually goes beyond nerding out. I mean, I think it's really important, and I think we can't really know where we're headed without knowing where we're going and what kind of city that we want to be. So I'm just like super grateful for everyone who has a touch point to tonight, because it's it really does take a community, and I feel that. I feel that love. So
very well said. And a cheers to you. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you for supplying us with the brews.
Anytime. You all are welcome back anytime. And our lovely audience members have enough ideas to keep you all busy for years and years and years. So
it sounds like it.
Ever you want
being assigned with all kinds of tasks here, but bring it on.
DM us.
Yes.
Slide into it. Sure. Why not?
All right. Thanks everyone for joining us tonight. This was really lovely to be with all of you. Like I said, I will follow up via email with links, tons and tons of links and information about all that we learned today. And if you have questions, most of you should have my email. That's how you got here. You can totally send me your questions directly. And this is our last program of 2021. So it was an honor to have both of you here for this, ending on a really beautiful note. Again, shout out to Kathleen and V's family for being here and for contributing information that we didn't know about her life, and just holes in her story. So with that, good night, everyone. Be safe, especially if you are driving around the Seattle streets. It's pretty rainy. So take care, and we will see you next year.
Good night.
Night. Cheers.
All right.
Yay!
All right. That was good.